Hi everyone, good afternoon. It is Sarah Shipton here from Scrapbooking with Sarah, and I am coming live to you on Tuesday, October 15 for this week's Technique Tuesday class. And I am super excited to share with you a product that I love using in my scrapbooking, and that is the 3D embossing folders. This one in particular is the exposed brick 3D embossing folder that I'm going to be demonstrating to you today. So super excited to share that with you. You can see I've got my scrapbooking layout in a memory protector. Hi Sonia, thanks so much for joining us. There's Miss Mel. Hi Mel, how are you girls? I'm so excited to share this layout with you today. I've got more New York photos, and I know these girls will be very excited to see this layout because more New York photos, and I know these girls are off to New York very soon, so they will be super excited to see this particular layout. So I do have my scrapbooking layout in a memory protector today, so I'm going to be taking that out shortly so we can have a look at the close-up of the scrapbooking layout. But before I do that, I wanted to share with you how I have used the flip flaps on top of my memory protector. Now, the two sizes that I'm sharing with you today are currently not showing on my website. So for those of you that have transitioned across from Close to My Heart with me to Stampin' Up, the flip flap was actually a Close to My Heart branded product that has now been taken over by Stampin' Up. And in the South Pacific here, we did initially have some of the flip flaps available for sale. That would have been, I want to say, oh my gosh, when did we get those in? I think it might have been, oh no, I want to say September, but I'm not sure if I've got that right. Anyway, we've had them come in at some stage in the last couple of months. And the 4x6 inch flip flap and the 3x4 inch flip flap, you will not find that item on my online store at the moment at all. But please do not worry, because there will be more of the product coming. You just don't see a graphic with currently unavailable because we are waiting for that item to come into the warehouse in the South Pacific. And when it does, I will be sure to let all of you know. For those of you that are in my Facebook group, you will see this morning I put a post up about the Close to My Heart products going on sale at midnight tonight. I've put a link to that sale in our Facebook group, and from midnight tonight, the Close to My Heart products are going to be 30% off. So that is super exciting, but you will not see this particular size of flip flaps there. There are currently flip flaps available on my website at the moment. So if you are wanting to grab some of the sizes that are currently in stock during the 30% off sale, you will be able to do that after midnight tonight. So for those of you that aren't familiar with a flip flap, how this works, this is a adhesive backed memory protector. You can see that this is designed to fit a 4x6 inch photo. So this could be a portrait photo. It could also be a landscape photo as well. So I love that with the adhesive strip, you actually get 10 flip flaps in the pack. And the 5 of the flip flaps will have the adhesive strip running lengthways, and 5 of the flip flaps in the pack will have the adhesive strip, running along the shorter edge of your photo. Okay, so this means I could have flipped this way as I've done it. I could have put the adhesive strip on this side here and flipped it out into the middle of my album. Because this photo is aligned on the inside of where this is going to sit in my scrapbook album, I quite often prefer to have the flip flap come back out this way, because when it goes out back that way, it's going to hit, especially if you've got it in a D-ring album, it's going to hit against your D-ring in the middle of the album, and the flip flap memory protector will not lie flat. Okay. If you're putting in a postbound album, it won't be so much of an issue. But when we do have D-ring and postbound albums come back in stock, I will run through the differences of those and what album you might like to prefer to put your photos into. Now, because of the way the adhesive strip goes, if this was a landscape photo, then I could have my flip flap going horizontally. I always have to think about that with my verticals and my horizontals. Horizontally is like the horizon, Sarah. Just think of the beach. So I could have my flip flap, my photo, my landscape photo coming up, or I could put the adhesive strip here and have the flip flap coming down. Okay, if I turn that around, I could have the flip flap coming down. So it really is a personal choice, up to you. But the whole point of a flip flap is it's designed to give you flexibility and versatility with your scrapbooking layouts. I've been able to get 2 extra photos onto this layout. So as you can see, there would have been 1, 2, 3, 4 photos, but I've turned this into a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 photo layout by adding those 2 flip flaps onto my layout. Now, these photos were taken in Chelsea Market, which is in Chelsea in New York City. And these were the only photos I took of Chelsea Market. We did a walk on the High Line from Hudson Yards downtown to Chelsea Market. We got off the High Line at Chelsea Market. It was time for Sarah to have a decent cappuccino. So we found a coffee shop there. We had a wander through. As you can see, you've got these beautiful, the building, the market is obviously in a the original building. And you can see here, I love this stuff, right? So all the history and the photos. You can see here where the freight rail runs along the west side of the city from uptown to downtown Manhattan. And this would be transporting goods back in the day to the market. So this stuff is like right up my alley. I love old buildings. I love architecture. I love history. So I just really wanted to stroll through Chelsea Market and just soak in the atmosphere with a coffee. We were heading to the 9/11 Memorial Museum this day as well. We'd already had breakfast, so we didn't actually stop to eat. It was just a little bit of a wander through. But the reason I've added these 2 flip flaps is that because I have got, it's a 4 photo layout, by adding the flip flaps here, I was able to get all of the photos I took of Chelsea Market on this layout. I don't now have to do a second layout to finish adding those photos. So I hope that makes sense to you. If you're following me along with that, give me a bit of a thumbs up. So 1 layout, Chelsea Market, done. I don't have to do 20 pages of one particular topic or subject or theme of my travels. So that's what I love about that. You can see we've got the 3x4 inch flip flap here as well. And again, you can flip it up, you can flip it down to the left or to the right, whatever works for you, okay? So what I'm going to do now is, as you can see, I've stuck the flip flap on the top of my memory protector so we can get a better look at the layout today that I'm going to be sharing with you. I'm going to take this out of my memory protector and we're just going to work through this week's scrapbooking challenge. So I am working with the Make It From Your Heart Volume 2 book. So this was a pattern book inspired by Jeanette Linton during my time with Close to My Heart. And I love using, this book was actually published in 2013, but we have actually done this layout. Some of you ladies might recognize this layout that we've done. This was actually one of the free scrapbooking patterns we used to advertise. We had a blog and we would put free patterns on the blog. And I reckon from memory, this was called Huntington. So it was actually named. You can see this beautiful layout here. You've got room for your journaling box here. So I have created a 4x3 inch journal box here. You are going to cut 4 pieces of paper at 2 inches, and then, well, I did the cut at 5.5 first, and then I cut them in 2-inch bits. So these are my, oh my gosh, I'm still learning the names. I think it's Early Espresso, which is the really dark brown cardstock with Stampin' Up. So you can see I've got these 4 papers. So don't you love that? That it looks like this cardstock is actually running the whole way down underneath my layout, but it's actually not. I've only got 2-inch strips here cut at 5.5 in width. So I've been able to get a piece at the top and the bottom on both layouts. And that is the piece that I've embossed. So this is your before. And I'm going to actually demonstrate the embossing to you today. And this was actually 2-tone cardstock. So this was one of the colors that came 2-tone. And I took this cardstock from my Autumn to Remember 12x12 inch 2-tone cardstock. So yes, Early Espresso. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colours in this cardstock pack, and you got 2 sheets of each. So I am using some leftovers from my Autumn to Remember Scrapbooking Workshop kit. This is the pattern pieces I have left. You don't have much left over with this kit, because the whole point of the Scrapbooking Workshop kits is you are meant to consume versus collect. But I did have some leftover stickers, and I had some leftover wood grain shapes. Do you notice there's not many left now at all, girls? I only have this much left of the wood grain shapes. So I've used a lot of the wood grain shapes and the stickers on my layout this week for the challenge. And I've used some of this pattern paper through here. The rest of it has been bulked up with cardstock, and I'm going to run through each of those colours with you. So I've embossed this piece of paper here. These 2 pieces of paper are 1/2-inch strips. So you're going to have a 1/2-inch strip that runs horizontally through here at the top and the bottom. And then you're going to have another sheet of cardstock. I actually buttered the cardstock up against the cardstock. I think it looked less busy. I did initially have the pattern paper up against the cardstock, but having the cardstock against the cardstock kind of just grounded it a little bit. So I've got my pattern 1/2-inch strip running through here. I've then got my cardstock running through here, which is Mossy Meadow, the Mossy Meadow here, and then the remainder of the pattern paper through here. Now, one thing that you will not see with the designer series paper is zip strips. So I know many of you are familiar with the 1/2-inch zip strip. This is a layout that I would normally have used my leftover zip strips for, but there weren't any zip strips, so I used leftover pattern paper and leftover cardstock. Through the middle here, I am using the colour Acorn, which is a close to my heart colour. You can still get that in 2-tone cardstock, so that will be one of the cardstocks which will go 30% off after midnight tonight. You can buy a whole pack of it, so it's like 24 sheets. But what works really well there with the close to my heart colour cardstocks is you could buy a whole pack, and then you could go halves with a friend or a fellow scrapbooker as well. So I've used the colour Acorn through the middle here. And then my base pages, I've actually used a close to my heart colour, and I've used Shortbread, okay? Now, the reason for that being is that I wanted a more lighter base page for my scrapbooking, and I wanted to stamp this border along the tops and the bottoms of my scrapbooking layout. And of course, I wanted to coordinate my journal box with my base pages. So I don't want this cardstock to be too dark, okay? So that's a little bit of inspiration for you in terms of the colours. So all of these colours coordinate together. The only colour that is not part of the Autumn to Remember coordination is the Shortbread. But I think it's actually turned out really well. And what I've done is I chose that by picking up some of the lighter colours in my brickwork here. I've got some of the dark browns in the signage here. There is some yellow through here and some orange, some warmer colours, and then that's where I've brought in the colours for the embellishments. My photo mats, I've chose Cajun Craze. So that was really just a matter of putting my photos on top of different colour cardstock that coordinates with Autumn to Remember. Really just laying them out on the cardstock and getting a feel for which colour it looked best in terms of bringing out the colours in the photos. And I settled on Cajun Craze. So Cajun Craze, you can get you get 2 sheets of this in the Autumn to Remember 2-tone cardstock, and the Cajun Craze. Now I had already used 2 sheets of Cajun Craze on my workshop. Well, I need to fix that photo. It slipped again. I'd already used the 2 sheets of Cajun Craze here from my layout for last week's scrapbooking challenge. So this is the original Cajun Craze, which I had from one of my Stampin' Up! Assortment cardstock packs, and that's from the pack Regals. Now, what I will do at the end of the video is I will post this, and inside the video, in the comments, I will put links to all of the products that I've shared with you today. So let's talk now about the artistic technique. So I've done the 3D embossing, which I'm going to share with you shortly. when it comes time to doing my embellishing, I quite often take inspiration from where the embellishments have been placed on the layout instructions on the pattern that I'm using from my how-to book. So you can see here, we've got a cluster in the bottom left-hand corner. We've got a cluster in this top right-hand corner as well. And that really just helps to balance the layout out and the eye to move from the left to the right of the layout. So starting on the left-hand side here, I've got a little embellishment cluster here. This was using leftover stickers from my Autumn to Remember workshop kit. Now, this pink sticker here had the word October on it. And if you are North American, you will know that October, fall, falls in October. We have opposite seasons here in the Southern Hemisphere. It is not fall for us in October, it is spring. And so I can still use that sticker as an embellishment. I just need to cover it if I don't want to use it for the month October. I was in New York in March, okay? So a little embellishment cluster here. I've punched out the love hearts. And then these little gems, these are the same iridescent foil gems that I used on last week's scrapbooking challenge. The thing I really love about these, so we've got the speckled gold inside them, but one of my customers at workshop pointed this out to me on the weekend. Because the gem is iridescent, whatever color cardstock you are going to put your gem over the top of, you're going to see that color cardstock be accented more. So by putting it over this toffee, acorn cardstock, you can see these look a little bit browner. Whereas by putting it over the shortbread here, it looks much lighter, okay, as you can see here. So I do love that. This is like my favorite new embellishment, these iridescent foil gems. So they're adhesive backed. You are just going to need to take them off with your tool or your tweezers to get them off and then stick them on your layout. Here I've done my title. So this sticker actually said, enjoying the last days of autumn. And what I've done is I've used some of my sticker scrap left over and I've stuck that over the word autumn. And I've actually used my mini alphabet dies to cut out the letters. I've used Early Espresso to coordinate with my cardstock here. And I've stuck NYC over the top. So my title is now Enjoying the Last Days of NYC. I've got another little embellishment cluster underneath it here. So this is a leftover sticker, a leftover die cut, the iridescent foil gems. This is a new product I'm sharing with you today. And this is called the polka dot trim. So I ordered this some time ago. It's $17.50 in the South Pacific. It's a fabric, like it's jute and polyester, but I love it because, girls, this is going to go with everything. Because it's natural, I could use this on beach layouts, camping, outdoors, really anything. And it's got these cute little white polka dot spots on them. You actually get, let me find the English, here we go, 9.1 meters of polka dot trim. So this is going to last you a really, really long time. Because it is fabric, part jute and part polyester, you are going to want some really good adhesive to stick that down. And I have used the mini glue dots to stick down my polka dot trim here and my polka dot trim up here. So I just kind of eyeballed the length that I was going to cut it at. I cut it with my my snips scissors, and then I've done a little embellishment cluster there and a little embellishment cluster here as well. This one's a little bit longer, and I've used some leftover stickers and wood grain die cuts from my scrapbooking workshop kit. This title sticker I've popped up using my Stampin' Dimensionals. I have a pack of each, and when I get down to the last sheet, I just put them in the same pack. So these are the larger Stampin' Dimensionals and these are the mini Stampin' Dimensionals. So, and as you can see here, I actually cut around the outside as well, and I use this leftover bit too. So make sure, girls, you get all of that adhesive used. And I've popped that up and my title sticker with some dimensionals, and then we've got some little wood grain clusters down here as well. Now, with the stamping border, this was really fun to use. So again, I took some inspiration from the pattern in my Make It From Your Heart book, and what they've done is actually some stitching Now, I am not about the sewing life, let me tell you right now. So what I did was I went through my stamp sets to try to find a stamp that had like a stitched pattern on it. You can actually, I've seen some people stitch around the borders, like actually hand stitch, which is what you can do with like a T-square ruler, or actually put their cardstock in a sewing machine and actually stitch the pattern through. There we definitely had a kind of stitched border stamp set when I was with Close to My Heart, and for the life of me I couldn't find it. So I actually pulled out this stamp set, which I've invested in with Stampin' Up. It's called Of Art and Texture. I've used this stamp set here, but I've literally just stamped off I've only kind of half inked up my stamp using the color Mocha, which is the comparison to Early Espresso. I've just only inked up half my stamp and stamped that over the edge, and just made sure I've had some scrap paper underneath that so it's not going on my mat there. You might very faintly see this little stamp image here as well in the background. Because I had stamped this with Mocha ink, I didn't want my little ink splattering here being super, super heavy. And again, I've taken inspiration from the little stamp splatter that you can see here with the clustering of the embellishments there. So I've actually stamped this in second generation, or if you are familiar with Stampin' Up, they call it Stamp Off. So you ink up your stamp and then you stamp it first of all on some scrap paper, and then without re-inking in between, you then ink a second time on your scrapbook layout, and that's what I knew to be taught as second generation stamping. So you're stamping it a second time without re-inking in between, and that's how you can get a really nice soft kind of stamp splatter on there. So that is the background to all my embellishments here. You can see I've got another wood grain die cut here using the Of Art and Texture. So I've used this stamp here for the border at the top and the bottom, and this little ink splattering stamp here in each corner there. So let's get into the embossing now. I have got my best friend with me. This is my... Oh my gosh, I'm in love with this machine, guys. In case you didn't already know, I know you hear me talk about it all the time. This is my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. When I signed up with Stampin' Up, I did not think I needed another I didn't think I needed another embossing machine. And let me tell you, this one wins. So this is the third machine I have invested in the last 11 years. And it is hands down the favorite machine, the most favorite machine I have used. So what I'm going to show you first of all, actually, before I do the embossing, I'm just going to show you the lettering here. I've already die cut that out, so I'm not going to demonstrate the die cutting today. But what I did want to demonstrate to you, you can see here, I've used my mini alphabet dies. So this comes with 2 dies in the set. This is stuck to the inside here. So it comes with 2 dies here. This is all your alphabet, and these are some other icons you've got there. And you can see what I wanted to share with you today. You can see that I've used the Early Espresso cardstock here. So this is the pattern that I've got already cut out. You can see that my letters are still stuck within here. Now you could do a couple of things. You could get your, take your pick tool. I've got the wrong end. Oh, here we go. I've got the wrong end. But guys, look, it's magic because the right end is just here. Now I could take my pick tool, and I could go through, and with all these little holes here, see how that's coming out? I could go through individually and I could punch out all those little letters there. But I like to be productive when I'm doing my scrapbooking. So what I've got here on the other end of my take your pick tool is the take your pick die brush tip. So I'd never used one of these before until I came over to Stampin' Up, and I love, love, love it. So I've got all these little individual bits and pieces which are stuck inside here. When you buy your take your pick die brush tip, so this is actually a component that you purchase separately, and when you buy it, you get this, and you get 2 of these foam mats. So I can take out the other tool that was in here beforehand, so you do need to buy this tool first, I can screw in my Take Your Pick die brush tip. It is a mouthful, girls, let me tell you. And I'm going to sit my die cut over the top of my foam square here, and using the brush, I'm just going to go over that, and it is going to punch out my letters for me, so I don't have to do that individually one by one. I can come back over here and see which letters I'm missing. And this will happen over time. As your die gets really good use, you'll notice that it will start to warp a little bit. When I first bought this, when I used it for the first few times, these were coming out like nobody's business. It was literally like butter. But this has had a really good workout at my workshops. And so what's happening is the die is actually starting to warp a little bit, and that's why the letters are going to get stuck in there, okay? So having one of these die brush tips is just going to make things a lot easier, and especially if you've got perhaps like a die that you use that's got lots of little pieces inside there. So like maybe a butterfly, when you cut your butterfly and your butterfly wings, obviously you're going to have all those little components inside there, and it's really annoying to punch them all out one by one. So if you invest in this die brush tip and this mat, that is going to make things a lot easier for you. So these are all the extra letters that I have left over, and I did share in last week's video, so you can go back and watch my YouTube from last week. I did share a craft organizer that I purchased just from Kmart, and that's where I've put all my excess letters in there. So now if I've got a scrapbook layout that I want to make an extra title for, all I have to do is pull my craft organizer out and find the color. I didn't have the color that I wanted, so I cut my letters in early espresso, and they matched perfectly with my embossing folders. So let's bring this up a little bit here, because we're going to use the embossing folder now. So when you invest in your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, you're going to get a whole heap of plates, and I think I've only bought my plates in for the, oh no, I bought all of them in. So you're going to get a whole heap of plates. So the thing I love about this is it's got the instructions for both your die cutting and the instructions for your embossing folders. You can use standard embossing folders and also 3D embossing folders. So it is important to note when you are purchasing your embossing folder, you will see this on my website, you'll see it in the catalogue, it says 3D embossing folders. So some embossing folders are just a standard embossing folder, and then that would mean if you're using a standard embossing folder, I would need to use plate 1 and plate 3 as per these instructions. But because I've got a 3D embossing folder, I'm going to use plate 1 and plate 4. Now, the difference between a standard embossing folder and a 3D embossing folder is that the 3D ones are just much thicker, okay? And you've got a hinge here, so it's important to note when you run your embossing folders through your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, you want to make sure that you're running it hinge first through the machine. So I've got plate number 1 here. I only need plate number 4, but I need to put my embossing folder in between the 2 plates. So I've got my exposed brick 3D embossing folder. The thing I love about this with the texture, you've got some exposed brick here, and then you've got kind of like these, you know, scratched sort of patterns in there. So you don't get that solid brick look the whole way through. Again, when you're embossing it, you want to make sure that your embossing paper is face down. So keep in mind with your two-tone, depending on which way you wanted to emboss. I just had my Early Espresso face down, so I've got the original colour of Early Espresso here in my embossing folder. And because this pattern is different, you might want to think about, depending on the size of your cardstock, you might want to think about your placement. Now, I started with one piece here, and then I actually put another piece directly underneath it. So I wasn't too fussed about it matching up or being perfect. It's kind of meant to look like that. But I do love that you can actually, this is a 6 by 6 inch embossing folder. We've got also some 6 by 8 inch ones. They are great sizes for scrapbooking, but I love that I can just pop my paper inside there like so. I'm going to fold my embossing folder over. I'm going to sit this down here on plate number 1. I need to get plate number 4. And then all I'm going to do is run this hinge first through my Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine, okay? Chris has joined us. Hi, Chris. You're going to get to see some embossing happening here, which I love. This is one of my favourite things to do. Excuse me. So if you've got just some plain cardstock on your layout, so I'm going to open this up, and you can see here that it is embossed the top of my paper. If I wanted to turn that over, then I would get the negative pattern, but I do love the positive pattern because I'm a real big fan of texture in my scrapbook albums. And then I've just used my normal Stamp and Seal adhesive, and I've stuck that down onto my cardstock, okay? Now, another really fun thing that you could do now that I have embossed this is you could get your little sandpaper disc, and I could brush over this. And because this is two-tone, the inside of the paper is going to be a white core. And so if I was to scratch this over, let me grab my little sandpaper piece here. Let me fold that up and pop that out the way. If I was to grab my little sandpaper here, and I could just lightly sandpaper over that, because the cardstock is two-toned. How awesome does that look? And it's white core. I can just scratch off a little bit of that cardstock on the front, and you can see now I've brought out some of the white core on the inside of my cardstock. So that's just another added technique that you could use when you are using your 3D embossing folders. So that's super fun and something to have a think about. The reason why the 3D embossing looks really great is because if I had a layout where I was using just plain cardstock, like through the middle here, you've got just this plain cardstock, you could run that whole length of that bit of paper. You'd have to line it up because this is obviously 12 inch and the embossing folder is only 6. Instead of having just plain cardstock on your layout, you could run the cardstock through your embossing machine using one of the embossing folders, and instead of it just being plain, so think of this like an elevated version of your layout by embossing that cardstock rather than it just being plain through there. And it was very similar to the technique that I shared with you last week. This is in a memory protector already, so I apologize for the glare. Last week where I did the paper leathering technique, I could have just left that cardstock plain, but by doing that paper leathering technique, it just adds a little bit of fun and a little bit of texture to my scrapbook layout. So I hope you have enjoyed hearing about this technique this week. As I mentioned, I was using leftovers from the Autumn to Remember Scrapbooking Workshop kit. And in fact, I have got the Autumn to Remember Scrapbooking Workshop layouts here that I've already created. I just need to add my photos on them. So I'm going to quickly share these layouts with you. I did add an extra photo here and 2 extra photos here on top of the instructions. And this is the other layout as well. I've just moved my journaling box over a little bit more so I can fit 4x4 inch photos instead of 3x4 inch photos. So they are the 3 layouts that you are going to do with the Autumn to Remember Scrapbooking Workshop kit. And last week's challenge and this week's challenge, I have used leftovers from that Scrapbooking Workshop kit, coordinating with some of the Autumn to Remember cardstock to do 2 extra layouts. So I love that for you all. Ladies, thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see the challenges that you create this week, and I hope you get some time to play with your scrapbooking projects. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye for now.